Today, I have as a guest Maria Brophy. She's a creative business strategist, artist advocate, and author of multiple books. Maria's journey began alongside her husband, Drew Brophy, a world renowned surf artist. What it started as helping manage his art career turned into a mission, empowering artists around the world to build abundance, purpose, and success in their art careers. In this conversation, we will explore how Maria stays in creative flow, what abundance really means, and how love, loss, and resilience shaped her new book, COVID, A Love Story. Maria, welcome to Decoding the Flow. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So I really want to talk about your new book because you just launched the new book. It's incredible. I start reading because I have it and I cannot wait to dive in. But let's just, I'm going to start with this book that I have. And also it's like on the back, just because I have this book since it came out. I think it came out like in 2017, and it was right when I was starting off to become a professional artist. And you can see I have like so many notes on it, and it become like a way to go for me to any situation that I have. And I wanted you to talk about the truth of this book, how after so many years it still holds so much true for artists, and how we become the truth for you alongside with managing the art career of your husband, incredible Drew Brophy.
Yeah. And it's funny, I wrote that book. It actually, so the book Art, Money, Success, I wrote that for artists. It was published in 2017, but I knew I had a vision for it that I wanted the whole book to be something that was going to be relevant even 10 years later.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't go into social media in the book, hardly at all. I just skimmed the surface of that because social media changes so much. But all the principles, the basic principles of being a successful artist are timeless. The first thing is you have to know what success is for you, right? Because it's different for everybody. You have to know what you want. You have to work on the belief that you're going to get it. And then you have to make decisions and choices that lead you to what you want. It sounds so simple, but people miss it all the time. They say they want one thing and then they make a choice that takes them further away from that.
Mm.
That's something that I talk about all the time, and then the principles of communicating, of building relationships, relationship building with your buyers, your art collectors, and fellow artists. The relationship building aspect of it goes back 1,000 years, 2,000 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's never going to change. Relationships are always going to be what puts you ahead of other people, what puts you on the path of where you want to go.
Really shaped my entire life when I read this book. Like, again, I was just starting out, and my connection with my art collectors, it goes so beyond a transaction. And it is definitely something that I value like more than anything else, more than showing up on social media. Like when I have art collectors come and pick it up their painting, their new painting, like in my studio, and we just like ended up talking about life, they become your lifelong supporter. And I think it is something so beautiful that you talk on this book about building that relationship. Is there anything else that you want to touch based on success? Like you said, you need to define your own success because it can look like it's so different between artists. And why do you think artists say that they want something, but they act on the contrary?
Because they say they want something, they say they want one thing, they want to be a successful artist, and then their mind, that idea of success might be to have their art in fine galleries and in museum collections. And but then they or it's to just make a full-time living with your art, which is what most people want.
Hmm.
But then they make decisions and choices that take them further away from that. They have a mental mindset that is like putting a brick wall up between them and success. And that mental mindset comes from everybody else. It comes
Hmm.
from like this collective that says artists can't make a living with art, which is absolute BS. Absolute BS. I have been working one-on-one with artists since 2009, and I can't count how many artists I know that are making a really good living. And to me, a really good living is making about 200,000 or more a year in revenue from art sales. That's what I think a good living is. Although, depending on where you live in the world, so where I live in a Southern California beach town. 200,000 is like not that much money, but it's what you need to live a good life, a decent life. But if you lived, there's so many places you can live where you need just a fraction of that to have what you think is a great life, where you don't have to worry about bills and you can pay your mortgage and feed your kids and take vacations. But the other thing is, so that's one thing I hear from artists all the time is my dream is to be a full-time artist, but I don't want, and then they put up all these restrictions. I don't want to make art prints of my art. I don't want to talk to anyone. I hear this all the
Hmm.
time. I don't want to leave my house. I say, well, I can't help you then. I can't, I don't have a magic wand, and that requires a magic wand. Like you cannot hide away and never talk to people and make a living with your art. I don't know one person that has ever been able to do that. Maybe that person exists, but I've never met them. I don't
I
know.
feel like this is also like the art world has this mystery behind artists. And I don't know what it is. It's a lot of times you see this super well-renowned gallery showing an artist that you've never even heard it before. You can see like their Instagram. It was just like the beginning of it. So I think part of this is this side of the art world, the mystery of it. They want to keep it the secret, like the mysterious artists. And I agree with you. I don't think you are able to really build something sustainable if you don't show up, if you don't talk about your art, if you don't show your face and build relationship. But maybe it is what we see, right? This mysterious life of an artist.
Yeah. This one artist that I work with, her name's Bess, and she lives in Arkansas, and she doesn't live near any galleries. She's like in the country, and she really wants to do an art show. And I said, well, I was asking her what she does, a couple different themes of paintings. And she said, well, I really want to do a show with my cat portraits. And so she does these cat portraits, but she likes to capture like the personality of cats, and they're actually really cool paintings. And I said, well, why don't you look for like a charity or an organization that really loves cats or loves domestic animals, and see if they will host an art show for you. And she just at first couldn't wrap her head around that idea. Like, well, wait a minute, why not an art gallery? And I'm like, well, I always tell artists, if you're not in galleries already, don't bother with galleries. Like there are so many other ways to do it. So she started thinking about this and brainstorming. And this is what's really important. When you start brainstorming, you come
Mm,
up with ideas. And she said, well, there's this place where they like to help cats, and I forget the name of it, but it's this organization where they rescue cats and then they find homes for them. And next to the cat rescue is a cat little cafe. And the cafe is owned by the same person, and it's all about cats. And I said, well, and so she and I together said, well, gosh, that would be a great opportunity because the cafe is actually this really cute little space, and it would be perfect for an art exhibit. And so she was very nervous about it, but she got in the car, drove to the little cafe, got a hold of the owner, told her idea, and the owner loved it
That's
and said,
beautiful.
yes, let's do it. So what she said to me later, like I talked to her 2 weeks later, and she said, I can't believe how open my mind has become because she said at once I shifted my thinking from, oh, there's only one way to do an art exhibit through an art gallery or through a museum. There's only one way. She said, as soon as I shifted my thinking to actually, there's probably 10,000 ways to do it.
Yeah.
And I just have to look for one way. And she said it was so easy once I opened my mind to it. And I think that's the biggest thing is opening your mind to doing things that other people aren't doing in the fine art world. Because for me, I've been in this business for over 25 years selling art. I have found that we make the most money, the best sales, we meet the best clients when we don't do something in the art world, when we do something outside of it, where the people resonate with the art, but it's nothing to do with the art world.
Yeah.
And that's where we've had our most success. Like, for example, I'll give you a great example. Setting up exhibits or even talks around a piece of art at trade shows and convention centers and at like business events. So that's where we've had the most success. Like we've done an art show at Surf Expo. It's this giant surf industry expo. We've done a lot of things at that expo over the years. And one year we did a giant art exhibit. Nobody's ever done an art exhibit there before. No one. We were the
Yeah.
first. We sold every single piece in that exhibit before that, and it was a 4 day show before that show was over. And most of the art was giant, giant.
That's
And
incredible. And I
yeah,
think that is also really important if you feel stuck in your art business to look for a mentor like yourself or like find new informations in different books. I mean, you can find something online, but if you resonate with the mentor, it's really good to open your mind because sometimes you try to solve a problem with the same mindset that created and it's barely impossible, so you really have to find unconventional ways to exhibit your art. I love how you say that because we are so conditioned. I think today it is changing a little bit, but we are so conditioned to just go with the masses, right? And the usually success is outside of that. And
yeah.
then you can totally find like so many ways on this book. So I'm really grateful that you put this into the world and it still hold so much true. And I just really love it. I know you wrote another book. If you follow Maria's and Drew's journey, if you don't, please go ahead and follow them. But during COVID, something very unexpected happened. That Drew almost lost his life. And I followed your journey and I had my heart. I think I sent a message to you like every other week because it was so tough. I would love for you to share what has shaped the way that you see the art world after everything that happened. And then we can go and talk about that book that was born from that experience.
Well, there were so many lessons and gifts that came from that horrible thing that happened. And I think the biggest one was that I got an understanding of how you can move a mountain with your mind.
Mm,
Sounds crazy, but how you take a death sentence, there's no chance he's going to live, and I just refused to believe that, even though I knew it was a probability, but it was do or die. I didn't have time. I didn't have a year or two to work on my mindset. I had to do it now. And I'll tell a little story. Drew had been put on the ventilator. The doctor said, basically, when you get put on a ventilator with COVID, you have a 15% chance of surviving in the first 4 days. After 4 days, you really, most people don't last a week. Some did, but very small percentage. Um, and so I started planning his funeral. That was my first reaction
Wow.
because I was told he wasn't going to live. And I was driving down the road and I'm in my mind, I'm planning the funeral. I'm thinking about who's going to be there, where the funeral is going to be, the logistics. I'm going through the strategic logistics in my mind. And then all of a sudden, I heard this voice in my head and it was very loud. And the voice said, if you want him to live, you have to plan for him to come home.
Wow.
And I got that message so loud and clear that I said, oh my gosh, here I am planning his funeral, but I don't want him to die. I'm going to plan for him to come home. So from that moment forward, I never again entertain the thought. I wouldn't let it go in my mind. Every day, the nurse would say, this room's going to be empty tomorrow. He's not going to be here. I mean, they wouldn't say that to me, but you could hear them say that, and to another nurse down the hall, and everybody knew he wasn't going to make it. I started planning for him to come home. And then I decided to take it out to social media because he's got a very big following. And I have the logins to all his social media accounts, thank goodness, because I logged in and here he was in a coma. And I let everybody know what was happening, but I never let on that he was on his deathbed. I asked everyone to visualize him surfing and painting again. So I was
Wow.
getting tens of thousands of people
At the same energy level that you are.
in that same mindset. And then now this is really important. This is not hocus pocus magic stuff. What happens is when you get everybody around you to believe, slowly some of the nurses started to believe. The doctors never believed he was going to make it, but some of the nurses started to, because that's what I kept saying. When he comes home, when he comes home, even though they would tell me he's never coming home, I kept telling them he's coming home. And so what started happening was people started helping and started taking action to help him get better. I started working with other doctors outside. I found some doctors that had been saving lives from COVID and got advice, and I started fighting for alternative treatments. So this is where when you make a decision, and you can do this with your
With anything.
business, with anything
Yeah.
in life, but once you make a decision, you say, I'm shutting off all other possibilities. There's only one possibility. He's coming home. And so if the doctors in the hospital don't believe it, I'm going to hire doctors outside of the hospital that can help me figure out how to bring him back to life. And so that's what I did. And it was a battle for months. He was in a coma for 30 days, an induced coma. They put him in the coma for 30 days. He was on the ventilator for 70 days. Nobody survived. He had a collapsed lung, multiple sepsis infections, kidney function failure. He did die. He came back. So he had a near death experience where that's a whole nother story, went to the other side. He went to the place where you go when you die, which changed his life. He'll never be the same. But that strength of when you become very stubborn about something, like one day I'm going to have a museum show, you get very stubborn about that. All of a sudden, you start doing things knowing that one day you're going to have a museum show and you're planning 10 years ahead. We did that. Drew and I did that. Um, I remember we went to a Maxfield Parrish art exhibit. It was a retrospective exhibit. It was the best art exhibit I'd ever been to. And this was about 15 years ago. And it was in San Diego, and Drew's parents were visiting us. So they were in town, and we took them to this exhibit. And what I loved about it is the first room you walk into, it's the artwork that Maxfield Parrish did when he was a teenager. And it was just utter crap. Of course it was. He was a teenager, right? And then each room you went in, it was the next decade of his life. And you just saw the progression of his artwork and then his most famous pieces. And as we're walking through the Maxfield Parrish exhibit, I look at Drew's mom. Now, mind you, Drew, this was more than 15 years ago. And we were really struggling to make it, we were doing it, but galleries wouldn't have him because they said he wasn't a real artist and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we're walking through the exhibit and I look at Drew's mom and I said, one day we're going to have an exhibit just like this for Drew in a museum. And his mother looked at me like,
Mm.
like that was the craziest thing she'd ever heard. But from that day forward, Drew and I had it in our heads that he was going to have a giant retrospective museum show. And it did finally happen in 2018. And it was just as big and magnificent as Maxfield Parrish's was in that museum that we went to. But the being stubborn, saying, okay, I don't know how this is going to happen. I'm not that great of an artist, that was what Drew was thinking back then. He's like, but that's my goal. That's my goal. That's one of my beliefs that I'm going to have a giant museum show one day. And so what does that look like? Well, it's you start using better materials, better quality stuff because you think, oh, this might be in that museum show. You start making sure that you keep track of every buyer who buys your art because when they do a giant museum show, they have to the museum borrows the art from the buyer, but you have to know who owns it. When we did Drew's museum show, the museum, it was the Myrtle Beach Museum of Art. They had to borrow, oh my gosh, I want to say like 25, I don't know exactly how many, 25, 30 pieces of art. And some of those pieces of art had been sold 20 years before. But I always kept a list of all the names, phone numbers, emails, addresses of the buyers. So we were able to get some of the really important, important pieces that showed part of his progression in that time frame, from decade to decade.
Wow, there is so many things that I wanted to unpack on this whole story. Uh, the near-death experience, I did not know that, but I would love to know more, maybe on another episode, because I really want to focus on the art money success. And you said that back then, when you were visiting this museum with your mother-in-law, that you guys were struggling. But once that idea kind of came about, you both got with the idea, kept the idea in mind. Do you think that was the turning point for this career? What was the shift that you two had to had it to go from struggling to thriving?
Okay, it wasn't actually. The turning point came before that in around 2002. So this was a long time ago. Drew, Drew had been a full-time artist already for a long time at that point. He graduated, let's see, I think he started his full-time art career in the early 90s, right out of high school, painting surfboards for a living. So he did that for a while. And then when he met me, I saw that there was so much more he could do with his art. And so I started helping him with that. In 2002, it appeared that we were very successful because we were selling art prints in like 500 surf shops in the country. We were selling prints, t-shirts, stickers, and then also we were selling paintings, not in surf shops. We were selling paintings to collectors. We were doing at least one or two art shows a year. And we had a number of employees working for us. We actually had a warehouse and it was crazy. It was a big operation, but we weren't doing it properly. We weren't running things properly because we were better at the creative stuff. And so what we discovered was even though we had like our revenues were really high, our profit margins were really low. The thing that really screwed us up was the t-shirts because they cost so much money back then to make, and you had to make thousands at a time to get the price really down. It's a long story. I'll save you all the details, but basically we realized we were losing our butts and we were like, oh my God, here it looks like we're so successful because we're in all these stores, but yet we're losing money. That was a slap in the face. And it made us realize, okay, we have to be better at the numbers. We have to pay attention to the numbers. We shut down our wholesale division. We got rid of the
The
warehouse.
warehouse.
We fired all the people that worked for us. We said, okay, we are going back to simplicity. We're going to start over. And it was a very hard thing to do because it's really hard to kill that baby that you built up. It's like we had this wholesale business that we had birthed and we were raising, but it was not performing and we had to kill it. It was really hard to do. But we took a step back and we said, okay, we're going to focus on the things that make money. The original paintings and art prints. And when we do collaborations, we are exposed to larger audiences. And so that was what we started to do. And that was a turning point in 2002. So then we hummed along. We were supporting our family of three, and then became a family of four when we took our niece in. So then we had our son and our niece, but it's still, I felt like we weren't making enough money for what we were doing. And 2016 came and we started working with a business coach one-on-one for a year. We worked with this one coach, and this coach worked on our mindset, which I thought I had a pretty good handle on. But no, we limit
There's
ourselves.
always another level of consciousness. Always, always.
So working with her, and then I bought a $7,000 online course, which is crazy. I had to lie to Drew and tell him it was $700 because he would have killed me. But I did. I bought a $7,000 online course that has nothing to do with art. It teaches you how to be a high value provider. And within 1 month of taking that course, I brought in $35,000 project, which more than paid for the course. And that was it. We started skyrocketing after that. And um, we've come close to making $1 million a year. We haven't quite hit it. We keep getting close, but I feel like we have just unlocked so much. And the reason I share so much of this with people, I make YouTube videos, and I have friends sometimes say like, why are you giving all this why do you even bother? Why do you do it? Because it's what I was born to do. I was born to write books. I was born to figure things out and show other people how to do it. I know that's my purpose in life. And I know that I was meant to be surrounded by artistic people because I was brought into this world. The first person I met was an artist. That was my mother who gave birth to me. My mother is an artist. And I always surrounded myself with musicians and painters and sculptors and writers. That's my whole life.
That is so incredible. And I am so glad that you said that you invested in yourself and in your mindset, because I just did the same. I invested in a course for a mindset, a wealth mindset. I think that it goes really well with what you were saying at the beginning. When your actions don't align with your future vision, because usually you are acting from the vision of your present moment, but instead you have to have that mindset of having the vision and act as if you are already that person. It can sound like really woo woo, but that's what the mindset work does to you. It makes you open your mind to create new pathways in your brain to see more possibilities. And that's one of the main reasons I want to start this podcast and talk about this consciousness, the creative consciousness that we all have, and finding purpose in your life, like you said. And it's so beautiful when you can open our mind and say, like, this is what I've meant to do. And so many artists, how many people that know an artist that doesn't go through that creative path because they don't think it's profitable? So they ended up going to a 9 to 5 job that they hate, and
Kills their soul.
kills their
Soul
soul.
killing.
And if you don't do anything about that calling, that inner fire that you have within you, it's going to get louder and louder and louder. And all you see is your life passing by, and you lose that fire, that soul, that calling. So I am so glad that we are talking about this, and we are sharing our stories and giving a space and courage for you to go after your dreams, and you are going to figure out along the way. I think, and I can tell that from my own experience. I was a journalist. I was working as a journalist, even though I love interviewing, and that's maybe why I came back to it. But I was working as a journalist, as a reporter back in Brazil for over 15 years of my life. Art was my hobby because I didn't have any background, have not whatsoever thought of a possibility that I could make a living as an artist. It was only when I moved to the United States, after many years, and I moved to the South Bay, where I start seeing the art fairs and like regular people, right? Because you go back to like artists that has this magic to it that you think you are special, but we are just regular people trying to live by what we love, by our passion. And when I finally decided to give up the journalist, when I burned the boats, I was like, okay, like you did with the story on the museum. It's like, this is it. This is my path. I'm not going to give it up. I'm just going to figure out. And the universe just keep giving you like one thing after another, one thing, like one client after another, one idea after another. So you are supportive. You just don't know. You just have to trust in yourself so much and trust in your calling so much and just go for it.
Yeah, trusting in yourself. That's a big part of it. And spending time being quiet.
Mm,
People can't, so many people just can't stand to be alone with their own thoughts, but you have to be. You have to be to get the best ideas.
yeah. To
Now, I
get that
used to,
creative consciousness, because it all comes from divine. I like to call that.
yeah.
Even if you don't believe it, you have to quiet your mind to really open space to creative. I love it. All right, so we're not talking here for you to give up your entire life. We are just trying to give you that possibility that you too can make a living as an artist. But let's say, Maria, you're working with somebody who is working in a 9 to 5 job and it's really fed up with their life and want to go and create, live by their creative gift. What would be the first steps that you would say to them to do it?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is make sure that you're creating art, even though you're working 9 to 5. Create, develop your technique, your style, your whatever it is that you love to create. And if you want to transition from a regular job to being a full-time artist, start selling your work before you quit your job. Start stepping into it. When you sell a few pieces, when you successfully do a show or two, and I always tell artists, do a show, do an exhibit. I don't care if it's in a coffee shop. I don't care if it's at a friend's house. There are so many skills that come along with doing a show that the practice is really good. You practice putting a cohesive piece of work together, putting the story about it together, then all the skill sets it takes to organize an exhibit and then show up and show your art and talk about your art. All those things, that's practice. Then I would say talk to your boss and ask if you can take a 20% pay cut and go down to 4 days a week. And then, and I can't tell you how many artists I've advised to do that. They've done it and it works. One of the artists I was working with a long time ago, he was an engineer with a full-time job. He asked his boss if he could take a pay cut and cut down to 4 days a week. He did. So then now he had 3 full days he could work on his art. He started selling his art. Then he went to his boss like 6 months later and said, "Can I cut back to 3 days a week?" And he did. And then it only took about a year until he felt comfortable enough to quit his job and go full time. And so I think that's a safe way to do it because I'm going to say this, not everybody is cut out to be a full-time artist because basically you're an entrepreneur. Not
Mm.
everybody wants to be an entrepreneur because an entrepreneur, the responsibility lies on you. A lot of people don't want that. You have to be someone who you can be afraid to do things, but you have to be the kind of person that does it anyway,
Mm.
even if it's scary. And sometimes the scariest things for us is to talk to other humans.
And I love how you embrace Drew's journey and it became like your purpose of helping artists. I think it's so beautiful. And Drew is definitely a lucky artist because I see myself doing the art and doing all of the marketing and all of the creating the solo show. Let's talk about the creating the solo show because I totally agree with you. And it is so interesting because I remember one time I had a medical office that offered me their wall because everybody wants art on their wall. So you can definitely start it by that if you don't need a gallery. And it was so interesting because it was like back in my head. I was like, well, but I don't know if I want a medical space. Like, who's gonna see my art? They're not there to sell. And then like the other voice in me is like, no, it's better than stay like piling up in your studio. We never know who's gonna see it. And oh my gosh, I cannot even tell. I put up all of my paintings in this beautiful medical space here in the South Bay. And after like 2 weeks, it sold out. And I have one of the clients from that space even asked for 7 more paintings. They
That's
became they
amazing.
became like my top number one art collectors, and they collect every single year because they wanted to follow the journey of an artist because your art will evolve. So we never know. It can be in a coffee shop, it can be in an art gallery, or it can be on a medical space. All that matters is the energy that
Yeah.
you use when you are installing that artwork. You have to have faith that this is the best that is happening to you and to your art. You have to really expect the best. You have to have that mindset. Otherwise, if I would go there, it's like, yeah, I want it, but I don't know. It's going to devalue my art. If I would have had that mindset installing the artwork, I would not have that out.
Yeah.
So
So I
let's
have a
talk.
question for you about that.
Yeah,
So it was a medical center. Is it like a place where people go to see the doctor?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And did you have like signage next to every painting?
I did. I put
Did it have a
painting.
QR code, a way to
The
reach you?
only difference with this spaces, even a coffee shop, they're not there to sell your art.
Yeah.
You are more than welcome to leave your business cards, to put the price tag on it,
Hmm.
and to have your email and everything. So
Yeah.
it's almost like a direct contact that you have with the clients that it's interested in your work. Who doesn't want a beautiful art on their wall, right? They're not even taking a cut because they just want a beauty on their wall,
Yeah.
which is a beautiful thing because if you work with a gallery, yes, they will sell your work too, but they will take a really big cut. You have to
Right.
find what works for you.
It's amazing. Really great. Yeah. And that's like thinking outside the box. And it's all the little details also. Like I've seen artists put their art up with like their name, but nothing that encourages people to call them if they want to buy it. So you have to really, I always tell people this, you have to make it easy for
Yeah,
someone to buy. If you make it hard, you've just, and it's hard if you don't put your phone number on there, if you don't put in a price on there, if you don't put a message that says this art is for sale, call me if you want to buy it. Like you have to make it that obvious and that easy.
the call to action have to be very
Yeah.
clear. Another thing that I want to touch bases with you, I know we're getting so long, but we can wrap up after this. Let's talk about energetics of success, this wealth energy, the wealth abundance, because I know that you have that side of you with your intuition and all of the mindfulness that you also put into your work. So I'd love for us to talk about the importance of the meditation and the mindfulness into a business, into any business, to be honest.
Well, your attitude and the way you feel, your emotional state is projected out into the world. And you know this is true because if you're ever anywhere and somebody in a really foul mood, really bad mood walks in the room, it's like somebody walked in with a rain cloud, right? And you can feel it. People can feel your energy. If you are desperate because you need money and you're broke and you got to sell this piece of art, they will feel that energy. Even if you never tell them with words, your energy tells them more than your words do. And so it turns people off. When you're a negative person, when you're a complainer, when you have a victim mentality, you feel like you're a victim, all those things stop your success. And it's because it repels people. And so you have to really work on your emotional state and get your emotions to a place where you feel gratitude for the good in your life. And even if your life is crap, there's still good in it. You're still eating food. So that's something you could be grateful for. Or maybe your mother calls you every day because she loves you. You could be grateful for that. Or, you can always find something to be grateful for. And when you take the time to think about what am I grateful for? Like for me, I mean, this is silly, but I feel grateful every time I get in the shower because I love the hot water. 100% of the time when I get in the shower, almost every day, I go, oh, thank you. It's
I
a
love that.
silly thing, but it's like I feel gratitude for the hot water. Because I don't like cold showers. And I I have gratitude for my pillow and just my coffee, the little things that bring me comfort. So there's always something that you can feel grateful for. And when you feel into that, that generates an energy.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell you a little sales trick I have. When I'm nervous and I'm about to meet somebody and I have I'm going to sell them a big painting and it's like, oh my gosh, I really want this sale. And I take a few moments before and I get myself into this feeling of gratitude. I literally put my mind into my heart space, and I feel my heart. And then I think of the person I'm going to meet, and I think, okay, I love this person. What do I love about them? I find an attribute that I love about that person before I walk in. Now I've got this energy
Of
of
love.
joyfulness
Yeah.
and they feel the love. They don't have to know that I was thinking that because they might think it's weird. Some people think that's weird. They don't have to know, but they feel it
I
and they
love that.
respond to it.
Yeah.
And I don't get attached to the sale. I
Yeah.
never get attached to the sale. Um, I have had many times where I'm sure somebody's buying something or it's a big deal we're about to sign and then it collapses and it doesn't happen. And yes, I feel disappointed and I allow myself to feel disappointed, but I say, okay, on to the next thing. And, maybe there's something better on the other side of that.
Yeah, that is the mindset that I grew on me because you have to put yourself out there. You have to always be submitting your art, especially like larger works like a mural. Sometimes you will get a no and you cannot be attached to it. And so the minute that I got no, I just got a few rejections this past like 2 weeks, like two big rejections. And the minute that it happened, that I received the email, it was like something better must be on the way. And of course, I will allow myself to feel that discomfort of like, oh, darn it. But if you don't put anything on the pedestal, if you feel like you have your self-worth, this is not going to define your worth, you can celebrate it and just expect it. The next thing it's going to be so much better. You can barely handle. That's what I think.
Well, thing too, then if you get turned down for certain things, you have to self-reflect and say, okay, could I have handled that conversation better? Could I have done a better presentation? Could I have maybe next time do this instead of that? Like, one thing I noticed that, politics is, oh, I do not ever have political conversations. And somebody walked in the gallery recently and they were going to buy something and they started talking to Drew and then they brought up like some political thing and they got in this conversation and it was a very civil conversation, but they were on the same side of it, but it brought in such negative energies that they ended up not buying. And after they
Wow.
walked out, I told Drew, I said, no more conversations about anything that's in any way, shape, or form negative because that energy just dropped. And they
Yeah.
were about to buy this and then they left. And so if somebody walks in and they want to go there with that conversation, it's up to us to flip it and change the subject. That's what we have to do.
I love that. Maria,
Yeah.
do you have like any sort of ritual that you encourage artists to have to really enter into this abundance and success mindset? You mentioned about the gratitude part. Is there anything else that you would
Yeah.
recommend?
So start every morning before you get out of bed, while you're still laying there, cuddling with your covers. Spend 5 minutes. That's all you got to do. You can spend more, but minimum of 5 minutes thinking about all the things you love. And you can start with looking around your room. And this became such a habit for me. Um, and allow yourself see what that feels like physically and energetically, and get in the habit of doing that every day. And then if you want to take it further, do a meditation before you get out of bed. I do that almost every day too, unless I'm in a hurry. Um, Today I did a 12-minute meditation. I usually do a 30-minute to an hour, but um, find a guided meditation that works for you, that gets you in a great mood, gets you feeling good about yourself. And if you can do that every day, it sets the course for your whole day. But then if you do it every day, it sets the course for your whole life.
I love that. Where people can find a new book about the whole experience with Drew, with his near-death experience, and how you use the force of his community, your community, to bring him back. So if you love to see more of this story, I started reading and it's beautiful. So get her new book and definitely get the Art, Money, Success. It's an incredible book. It's timeless. Maria, we are wrapping up, but I have one more question for you. If you could leave one message for artists listening about thriving with a purpose and staying in flow, what would it be?
Let every choice you make every day lead you to what it is that you really want.
Mm, beautiful.
Pretty simple, but
It works. I
that's
love
what it is.
that. Maria, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your story with us today. Is there anything else that you'd like to share or to invite us into your world? Please let us know.
Yeah, I would love it if your listeners would check out my YouTube channel because I've been making a lot of videos for artists lately. I've been having a lot of fun with it. So it is just search my name, Maria Brophy, on YouTube. And that's about it. Thank you so much. I love this conversation. It was all the things I love to talk about.
Me too.
So
We
thank
can
you.
talk about it for
Oh, I
hours,
know.
I promise
I
you.
know.
I'm gonna make sure to include all of the informations and how to people can find you and work with you in the show notes.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.